Aloha kako. Thank you everyone for joining us today. This is the Committee on Education. We have one bill and about a dozen resolutions to go over. Today's date is the 23rd of March and it is about 2 o'clock p.m. and we are in conference room 309. First and only bill, we have SB 106, yes. ST2, this is with regards to COVID reporting. This is really just an operationalization of a bill that we did earlier. So pretty straightforward. And first up we have is the Department of Education providing testimony and support in person.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Martin, and members of the committee. I'm Yvonne Humble, Director of the Office of Student Support Services, testifying on behalf of the Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony in support of this measure. Thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you for being here. Next we have Office of Foreign Affairs and Support, not here, Department of Health and Support, and we have two individuals in opposition. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on SB 106? SD2. Seeing none, questions? Members, questions? Seeing none? Madam Vice Chair.
Moving on to our first resolution, we have HCR 59, HR 61, urging the Department of Education to prioritize funding for the English Learner Program in public schools to address the increasing population of English learner students. And to testify, we actually do not have anyone to testify on that measure. So we'll move right along to our next resolution, which is HCR 206, HR 210, and, oh, my apologies. Wait a minute. We did have the Department of Education in support. My apologies.
Thank you very much. Again, aloha, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Martin, and members of the committee. My name is Yvonne Humble. I'm the Director of the Office of Student Support Services, testifying on behalf of the Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony with comments on this measure. And again, thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any questions? Seeing none, moving on again to our next bill. HCR 206, HR 210, requesting the Department of Education to report on the feasibility of stocking short-acting bronchodilators in schools for emergency use. And we have, again, the Department of Education here to testify. You might as well sit close.
Again, thank you. Aloha, Chair Woodson and Vice Chair Martin and members of the committee. I'm Yvonne Humble. I'm Director of the Office of Student Support Services, testifying on behalf of the Department of Education. Department stands on its written testimony in support of this measure. And again, thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you very much. And in addition to that, we have testimony and support from the Hawaii Public Health Institute, Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks, Hawaii Medical Association, comments from Hawaii State Center for Nursing, just indicating that they are happy to be on the working group, and support from the Hawaii Society for Respiratory Care, and support from two individuals in addition. Members, are there any questions for our testifier? Seeing none, we will move on to our next bill, which is...
Am I able to testify on that previous bill?
Oh, okay. Great. So going right back to HCR 206, please go ahead, from the American Lung Association.
That's correct. And thank you. I simply wanted to be able to enter my testimony into the record in support. We were late in submitting our testimony, and so I apologize for that. We're very much in support of this resolution. Thank you.
Okay, your testimony is noted and will be included. Thank you for coming today. Is there anybody else wishing to testify? Are there any questions now that we have the American Lung Association available? No? Okay. Then moving on to our next measure, which is HCR 147, HR 149, requesting the Department of Education to report on the number of public school playgrounds that include equipment accessible to students with physical, intellectual, or developmental disabilities. And first up, we have the Department of Education.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Kurt Otaguro, Deputy Superintendent, testifying on behalf of the department. Department stands on its written testimony, offering comments. I would say that we're actively doing this today. In fact, we just rehired a specialist for this particular area, and she's overseeing 545 playgrounds across the state. About 100 or so are targeted to be replaced, and that is in partnership with the Hawaii 3Rs. And of that, we got another 30 that are non-compliant that needs to be replaced. It's over 20 years old. It lacks ADA compliance. So the department is very dedicated to this. In fact, we probably want to submit the reports and the progress reports and the plans that we have. And for that measure, for that purpose, I'm not sure if the measure is necessary. We're actively doing this as we speak. Thanks to the legislature for appropriating the monies. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And then in addition, we have the Hawaii Disability Rights Center in support, but not here in person. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on this matter? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? No? Okay. I just want to appreciate the Department of Education for their action already on this measure. Thank you. Next, we're moving on to HCR 75 and HR 76, requesting the Department of Education to contract with a qualified nonprofit organization for an aquatic safety education program. And we have first up the Department of Education with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Martin, members of the committee. Ray Fugino on behalf of the Department of Education. The department stands on our written testimony, offering comments on this. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. We also have in support Outrigger Duke Kahanamoku Foundation, Hawaii Aquatics Foundation, and an additional testifier also from the Hawaii Aquatics Foundation. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? No. I have a question for DOE. Thank you. So I understand from the introducers of the bill that they do have relationships with some of the complex areas that they are already working with and ones that want to keep working, and they also have private funding sources, not for the whole state, but to do some of their work. In order to expand a program like this statewide, would you agree that we need to have state funding in the future, as opposed to relying on nonprofits to get grants, et cetera?
So I have PE specialist George Centeo here, who has been, assisting with this.
Working with
So
that? Okay.
he'll give his.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being here, George.
Hi, could you restate the question?
I'm just wondering, like right now, this is already happening piecemeal,
Mhm.
right? With nonprofits soliciting grants, et cetera. What would it take to make this a statewide program? Like, would that involve a whole nother level of staffing within the DOE? Would it involve, what would it take to take something like this statewide?
Yes, in the written testimony, we mentioned a few of those things. For example, would be additional personnel and resources to support the management and execution of a contract with a nonprofit. So those would include things like conducting a needs assessment, getting procurement contract process, and managing funds and program promotion, communication, implementation. So yeah, personnel and funding to sustain that.
I think, sorry, I digested the question as you reread it again. George is the PE specialist. He's the closest person kind of connected to this topic, because PE standards currently does not require swimming, or drown proofing or that water safety. So he's the closest we have. So to answer your question briefly, yes, I believe, like he said, we would need a whole, someone dedicated to this. It's a big undertaking. And I don't know if currently PE teachers, some of them do, I'm not sure. if they address this, especially at the elementary school, when we're talking about, there's no dedicated PE teachers, required in elementary.
So I hadn't thought about it becoming part of PE. It seems like there's nonprofit independent organizations that do that. Is the model that you think would work best? Would it be to make it part of PE, or would it be to continue to work with third parties?
Yeah, no, to clarify, that we're not recommending it be a part of physical education. But as he mentioned, I'm the specialist for physical education, so I've been working with some of our partners to offer some solutions and to have, like for example, we have some activity books through another organization that we distribute across the state to our department schools for ocean safety and stewardship awareness, so those types of things.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, are there any other questions? Oh, Rep. Hesler?
Sorry, yeah, in your testimony you mentioned that the department requires ocean safety education in all elementary schools. So is that just the activity booklets, or is there actual instruction?
Yeah, basically for most of them it's distributing and having one grade level in the elementary schools doing the activity books and watching a video as well on ocean safety through Nakamakai, another partner organization that has given us permission to use their video and activity books. We've been working with them, so we distribute those to all department schools. Some may do more in addition to that, but that's what the expectation, that at least show the video and do the activity books.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, then we'll move on to our next resolution, which is HCR 180, HR 185, requesting the Board of Education to report on ways to increase access to extended learning opportunities or course credits for non-traditional and external learning experiences. And we have Hawaii Kids Can in support.
Aloha, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Martin, and members of the committee. Thank you for hearing HCR 180, HR 185. Hawaii Kids Can stands on our written testimony and strong support of this resolution with a few notes. So imagine for a second you are in the greatest school in the world. What are some reasons that would make that school special? You would definitely want an abundance of opportunities so that learning can be completely personalized for each student. You'd also want access to world-class teachers with overflowing wisdom, knowledge, and lived experience. Lastly, you'd hope that the learning students had a chance to connect with and give back to the surrounding community. Well, I'm happy to share that all of these elements exist in Hawaii right now, with community serving as a classroom in partnership with our schools through nonprofits, employers, and community organizations. There is literally no limit. We talk about a teacher shortage, but we actually have an abundance of kumu in the community. Please move this resolution forward. I hope you are as excited as I am by the immense potential for learning opportunities in our state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In addition, we had two other individuals in support and leaders for Hawaii's future in support. Are there any other people who are wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none, any questions from members? Seeing none, thank you very much. Moving on. Next we have HCR 53, HR 55, urging the Department of Education to create a priority list for repairing public school fire alarm systems. And we have in support the Department of Education.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. Kurt Otoguro, Deputy Superintendent, testifying on behalf of the department. Department stands on written testimony in full support, and I want to thank this committee for hearing this resolution and putting it forward. It's important. When I first joined the Department of Education, that was one of the first priorities that we looked at. Being in my former capacity as State Comptroller on the neighbor islands, we saw a lot of the fire alarm systems not working in the schools, and that's just not acceptable. And so working with our safety and security branch, I started to get them to do the list, and so we actually have a list. I don't like the results of the list, but it is what it is. So we have, the good news is about 80% of the alarm systems are working. We're classifying them as good. The bad news is about 12% of the schools don't work. They're critical, and that's unacceptable. That's approximately about, I would say, about 50 million that we're going to need to find. I'm wondering if we can work with the governor to do some kind of emergency proclamation for that, just so we can expedite the funding of it. Overall, I think we're going to probably need about 68, maybe 75 million in total to replace the schools. Now, some of the issues with the critical ones are because the parts are no longer found. They're old systems over 20 plus years, and there are just no parts. And so what we've been doing on the neighbor islands is just swapping out parts that they could sacrifice, but that's no longer the case. There are new technologies out there today that we're going to explore that leverages not only a fire alarm system, but also leveraging security cameras. Through broadband installation, we can capitalize on security monitoring, fire alarms, detection, PA systems, the whole 9 yards. So we're talking to different companies that offer this technology, and so we'll be happy to report this to the legislature. But we appreciate hearing this bill. It's very important, or the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is all the testifiers that signed up. Or is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none, any questions? Okay, Chica?
Aloha. Question for the DOE. So on the 68 million that you had mentioned as the estimate, and you mentioned it's a new technology. So does that include, being able to maintain the systems, training to be able to get the systems to work, and for your staff to, does that include potential repair or replacement of these facilities? And are the companies that you potentially contracting with located in Hawaii, or would be able to service the technology here in Hawaii?
If we go to new technology, it's going to require more money, because one of the foundational, the equipment is one thing, right? Fire alarm system that we all know is hanging on the wall. And what we will need, though, is broadband installation in the schools to do that. So you need to hook up the schools with new connections, fiber optic cables. And so that's a different cost that we hope to explore through a different initiative and bill, the infrastructure bill. But in answer to your question, yes, if we're going to go forward with new technology, there are companies that can maintain them, and this cost would not be part of that. We would have to run an operational cost. But again, security, how we view security is really full. Alarm detection is for fire, smoke is just one aspect of it. When you look at threat assessments and vulnerability assessments, you got to look at all of it together, right? It's not just one. And so it's thankfully the technology is here where we can leverage multiple things to do the same thing. So this estimate that we have now is clearly just an estimate. We will come to the legislature when we have our ducks in a row and have more details.
So just to clarify, so what I'm hearing is the new system that you are exploring is a more comprehensive, like, emergency kind of management system, and then in order to get the system to work, you need fiber optic, like high speed, like internet, to be able for this to work.
That's correct.
Okay.
So immediately the 12% that I mentioned for critical replacement, we got to do that now. I can't wait to establish a longer term security plan. But as we're doing it, if we're going to replace it, I want to replace it with infrastructure that can support the new technology. But we may not install security cameras and things of that nature. But superintendent is very supportive of that concept.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, are there any other questions? Representative?
Chair. Thank you for your testimony, and thank you for your work on this. We've talked extensively about this. For members on the committee, one of the reasons why I wanted to introduce this, and I'm thankful for the chair for hearing it, I have 2 schools in my district that don't have working fire alarm systems, one of which is actually a fairly new school, built in, I believe, the 2000s, where their boiler room actually, part of it burnt down because they didn't have a fire alarm system, and thankfully no one was on campus or hurt. But they still, 6 years later, still don't have a fire alarm system. The second school is another elementary school where the principal every hour has to walk through the school, the entire campus, to double check, because the sprinklers don't work, if there's actually signs of a fire or anything that could cause a fire. So I mean, this is it's beyond time that I think we fix this. I'm wondering, you talked about fiber optic. Is that something that you could work with the I know the state's really taken on this new broadband initiative with lots of different federal funding that's coming down. Is that something that you're already having conversations with DVET about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that
Well-
technically this $68 million figure, it may end up being more, probably will end up being more.
It will be more because it will involve security camera technology that we have installed at the state capitol here. So, for example, these cameras that DAGS installed a few years ago actually can detect motion, and that actually could tie into a fire alarm system if it was. It has the capacity to do it. It just hasn't been turned on. So these technologies have a lot of power now. It's just a matter of what we want to do with it. So in answer to your question, for your 2 schools, it's on the critical list, and we need to get to it. With regard to the costs, we will submit. This will be a big legislative ask over years, but we have to fix what's broken right now.
Absolutely. How quickly do you think, on this critical list, how quickly do you think this is going to happen?
I've spoken with our CFO and to find funding internally if we have some, and that's what we're looking at right now. 50 million is not a small piece of change, but if whatever we can find that can apply to the school right now for those critical ones, then that's the plan. If not, there is a legislative ask.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Vice Chair.
Chair, sorry, one
Do-
more question.
DOE.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here. How long do you think it's going to take you to clear the 12% in terms of time?
They're all over the island, so I'm hopeful that we can address. If I could do an emergency procurement, I want to address it within months. Now we got to work with the companies actually for procurement, and that's going to be. If I have to put it out to bid, then it'll be maybe a year. If we can do an emergency procurement and sole source, if there are specific things that we can do, and there's just a handful of companies that do it here locally, and so that's going to be the balance. Do I want to replace something with the same thing? There may be an upgrade that is just to have an alarm system. That may be where we go, but we're also trying to leverage the investment. So if we do something, can we do it and expand it? That's all.
And
So
safety, it should be such a high priority. I know that you folks have $50 million somewhere in which you can start to address this issue.
Yes.
Have you started to look at it? I know that you're brand new in this position, but have you started to look at it to see, specifically when you can get this taken care of?
I will get back to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a high priority, especially for the 12%.
And as far as sprinkler systems, do you have an inventory as to how many campuses do not have working sprinkler systems?
I would have to get that. It's an interesting in the fire code. The classrooms don't require smoke alarms, smoke detection in the classroom, which is very odd. It's required in an office building like this. So there's some anomalies that we need to take a look at. But I'll look into the sprinkler systems.
It's not required
It's not required.
Under federal law. It's not required.
Yeah. Which I find odd, but like I said, I'm digging into this with our team and finding different things. The other thing that we're looking at is like security for active shooters, and what we were told is that you can't have a deadbolt lock. However, we did find technology. It was not technology. It's a device that you can just press one button and it locks, and then it's a one motion to get out, which would be under fire code, national fire code acceptability. So there are things that we need to get clarity on so that we can start doing these things.
So with respect to the 12% of of campuses that do not have working fire alarm systems, what are the plan that's in place if in fact there's a fire?
Actually we're in bid, so it's not like we're sitting on it. I mean, they've already identified if I.
No, I mean, like, if there's an actual fire on the campus, what is the plan?
Well, every principal has an interim plan, right? They have, whether it's a bullhorn, whether it's a communication device, whether it's walkie-talkie, they have an immediate plan. It's not acceptable, but it's workable. And so the principals know when their fire alarm system is inoperable, what to do manually.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Go ahead, Rep. Russo.
So if you could get us list, if you could share with the chair, and then she can share with the committee, list of the playgrounds, the 100 playgrounds that you plan to replace, list of the 12% of schools that don't have working fire alarms, and then also a list of
the schools that don't have working sprinkler systems. I think those would be really helpful for the committee.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to HCR 116, HR 121, urging the Committee on Weights to recommend and the Board of Education to adopt a weighted student formula that gives greater consideration to small and remote schools. We have the Department of Education with comments. I'm not sure. Sorry, you are just in demand today. That's HCR 116.
Excuse me, I was so engrossed in the other
Yeah.
requests. Kurt Otaguro, testifying on behalf of the department. Good afternoon, everyone. So the department stands on the written testimony offering comments with regard to this concurrent resolution. I'll just leave it. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thank
Thanks.
you very much. We also have testimony in support from Waiahole Elementary School, Pacific American Foundation, and 8 individuals. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? No? Members, are there any questions? No? All right. Moving on then to HCR 123, HR 124, requesting the Board of Education and the Department of Education to integrate the documentary film Waterman into middle and intermediate school curriculum. And we have the Department of Education in support.
Good afternoon again, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Martin, members of the committee. Ray Fugino, on behalf of the Department of Education, we stand on our written testimony in support of this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we also have an additional 6 individuals in support and 1 in opposition. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? No? Okay, moving on. HCR 122, HR 123, requesting the DOE to convene a working group for a plan for every public school, elementary, middle, and high school to provide a unit of instruction on Asian American and Pacific Island history as part of their required curriculum. And first, we have sorry, next page. We have yeah, I'm sorry. We have like an HR 123 and an HCR 123, so it's hard to see where one ends and the next one starts. Okay, so we have the Department of Education in person.
Good afternoon again, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Martin, and members of the committee. Ray Fugino again for the Department of Education. We stand on our written testimony offering comments on this.
Thank you very much. We also have 1 individual in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? No? Any questions, members? Seeing none, moving on to HCR 158, requesting the Board of Education and DOE to produce a report on increasing access to tutoring services. And first up, we have Hawaii Kids Can.
Aloha again, committee members. Thank you for hearing HCR 158, HR 159. Hawaii Kids Can stands on our written testimony in strong support of this resolution with a few notes. If you talk to parents, one of the most consistent areas of interest is access to tutoring. When I attended a community meeting at Kalakaua Middle School last year that was hosted by the Board of Education to gather feedback for their new strategic plan, parents voiced strong interest and support in expanded tutoring. From a common sense perspective, we all know that more tutoring will help kids, not just academically, but through mentorship. I had the opportunity to tutor middle schoolers in college, and it directly influenced my decision to become a middle school teacher in the DOE when I graduated. Other states are jumping ahead. For example, Governor Lamont in Connecticut cited Smarter Balance assessment results in an announcement yesterday for launching an intensive math tutoring program for students in grades 6 through 9 to address learning loss from the pandemic, with the State Department of Education dedicating $10 million of its federal COVID-19 recovery funds to establish the Connecticut High Dosage Tutoring Program. Now is the time to take big, bold steps like these to move forward. Please move this resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We also have testimony and support from Air Tutors and from 2 individuals. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next resolution, HCR 143, HR 145. E ho'okikina akua nai ke oihana hono na au I ka'apono ana I komike e ho'o puka ana I ka ho'olala e hiki ai ke ka'anaya ma ka ho'olu ana I ka au olelo Hawaii na haumana pauloa. And we have in support the Department of Education in person. Oh, sorry.
Karina mai kako me ke aloha o kau I sang ke ia no ke ena ho na o Hawaii e mahalo aku ana ia o kono ka waiho ana I ke kahi pila ma ka olelo Hawaii na o ke ia ka mua o ike ke ia wa'aha olelo. Kau I sang with the with the Department of Education, standing on our testimony in support of HCR 143. Mahalo.
Mahalo to you. And we also have the Hawaii State Teachers Association in person.
Aloha, Chair and members of the committee. Laverne Moore, speaking on behalf of Usa Tui, President of the Hawaii State Teachers Association. The HST strongly supports this resolution. And on a personal note, I and my peers who grew up in the early days when it was illegal to speak our mother tongue, and it was illegal to have a Native Hawaiian first name. So our Hawaiian names are a middle name, and we have an English name. We get together many times, and we feel robbed that we were not given the opportunity to speak our mother tongue. My mother is pure Hawaiian, and my elders spoke fluent Hawaiian, but we were forbidden. They wanted us to speak English. I am so proud that finally the state of Hawaii is doing what they promised to do from our Constitution in 1978, and that our children are having the opportunity to speak the mother tongue, to learn the mother tongue. When I hear someone that speaks fluent Hawaiian, it hurts. And my peers hurt also. We tried to learn it, but at our age, it's very, very hard. So please expand Native Hawaiian speaking for all our children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We also have on Zoom, Aha Kauleo, are they there? Oh, not present. Okay, in support, and then 7 individuals in support, including the University of Hawaii as well in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none, are there any questions, members? Go ahead, Dr. Russo.
I have a question for the Office of Hawaiian Education. So the testimony from the department asked for additional resources to meet or to attend to the purpose of the resolution. And I'm wondering, because I know that this resolution comes in large part from HSTA and a committee of teachers that are doing this work. And I recognize that you're also interested in this kind of planning. Do you think that if you worked with existing committees or folks who, like just the teachers, would you still require additional resources?
Yeah, I think, sorry. I think initially, because we're such a large system, we would need to make sure that we have sort of a 30,000-foot level view on what is actually happening in the system, and that's going to take some time to be able to reach out to the community, the stakeholders in the community, to be able to understand what folks are actually doing now. At the state level, the Office of Hawaiian Education has sort of a good perspective on what we are doing in the field of Olelo Hawaii and Olelo Hawaii education for all students, which is from our perspective, a very limited approach. We do have plans for ensuring that we can expand availability and access. But of course, in this system, we're making sure that we're laying the educational infrastructure and support systems to be able to do that. And so while I do think we will be tapping into existing faculty and staff, sort of the management of all of that work and the list of items that we would need to address may require additional staff people to do that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any other questions?
Quick question for Director Sang. Thank you for being here. So what do you need most immediately from the legislature to help your expansion efforts?
Well, we currently, in the existing budget ask, are looking for some additional positions to be established within the Office of Hawaiian Education. We're also asking for positions to be, that we already have temporary positions to be made permanent. I think that would help to increase the availability of dedicated staff people within the Office of Hawaiian Education to be able to project manage something like this. And so I think initially taking a look at our current budget ask from the Department of Education would be something that would be helpful.
And those
to move
asks
this
are in
kind of
their
work.
approved budget? Are those asks in their approved budget?
Correct.
They are. Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair.
I have a question as well. My understanding is one of the biggest barriers is qualified teachers, lack of qualified teachers. And what are you folks thinking, or what is the strategy that you think would be most successful to develop those, grow our qualified teachers?
Yeah. One of the strategies that we're currently using is to provide tuition-free access to Hawaiian language classes for all faculty and staff in the Department of Education. Previous to the pandemic, we had launched that program, and that yielded about 550 it was teachers and principals, and also state-level staff who took advantage of the program and enrolled in Hawaiian language classes, with 2 cohorts completing 2 full years of Hawaiian language. We hope to continue that program in the upcoming year. We are also working to increase the teacher pipeline to be able to grow our own teacher candidates that come with Olelo Hawaii, using tuition reimbursement as some of the options for increasing the pool of candidates.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Are there any other questions? No? All right, thank you. Moving on to our last resolution, we have HCR 145, HR 147, urging the Board of Education to develop and enforce non-sex segregated dress codes for public school formal events. This would be like graduations and proms. And we have in support 7 individuals and a joint letter from over 100 students and educators. And do we have anyone here in person who would like to testify? Please come up.
Aloha, Chair
And
Woodson.
please state your name.
Oh, yeah. My name is Diego Carranza. Aloha, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Martin, and committee members. I'm a senior at Lelehua High School, and firsthand I've seen the harmful effects of sex-segregated dress codes, and which is why I support the HCR 145 and HR 147 for the following reasons. 1, it perpetuates an outdated and harmful ideology that there are 2 binary genders and expectations on how each should dress. Take, for example, the Lelehua graduation formal attire. We are specifically told that males should be wearing stereotypical masculine clothing, such as a collared shirt and tie, and females should be wearing stereotypical feminine clothing like heels and a dress. This directly leads to the ostracization of our youth that chooses not to conform to these gender stereotypes. It is imperative that we do not restrict self-expression of our youth, and moreover, that we don't ostracize them for doing so. Formal school events should be times where me and my fellow students should be able to enjoy ourselves and have fun, and not feel the pressures of these forced gender stereotypes upon us. It is harmful and has no place in my school or any other schools. Thank you for the time to testify.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? No? You're just here in silent support. Okay. Members, are there any questions? Rep. Russo?
Actually, could I ask Ella Matsui to come forward from Project SOAR? Can you talk a little bit about the origins of this resolution?
Hi, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Martin, and members of the committee. My name is Ella Matsui. I am the president and co-founder of Project SOAR, which is a youth-led nonprofit association striving to achieve gender and LGBTQ plus equality through the education of others. So Project SOAR was already a nonprofit association before this whole resolution thing came up. We were approached by some students at our school about the sex-segregated dress codes for homecoming court specifically. And then further looking into that, we found sex-segregated dress codes in our school through graduation and prom as well. So we decided to do something about it. We had reached out to other schools in our district, talked to students and admin there, and most of them came across the same problem. So we had came across Rep. Russo's contact information and reached out to her, and she helped us come up with an idea on how we can try to change that, which is why we're here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? No? Just a comment. I just wanted to thank you folks for taking that initiative and trying to change things for your peers across the state. All right. We are going to recess.
Thank you. Reconvening for decision-making on one bill and several resolutions. First up, we have SB 106, SD1. The recommendation is to pass as with the HD1, defecting the date. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote, please.
All right, we are voting on SB 106 SD2, and Chair Vice Chair vote aye. Rep. Evslin?
Aye.
Rep. Capella?
Aye.
Rep. La Chica?
Aye.
Rep. Martinez is excused. Rep. Matayoshi?
Aye.
Rep. Caruso?
Aye.
Rep. Quinlan?
Aye.
Rep. Todd is excused, and Rep. Garcia is excused. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members.
All right, moving on to our resolutions. First, HCR 59, HR 61. Vice Chair recommends passing as is. Members, are there any comments or concerns? For the vote, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Members voting on HCR 59, HR 61. The recommendation is to pass unamended. Any reservations or noes? Recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, HCR 206, HR 210. Our Vice Chair recommends fixing a small typo, just correcting the State Center for Nursing name, and otherwise passing as is. So with that slate amendment, are there any questions or concerns? Chair for the vote, please.
Thank you. Voting on HCR 206, HR 210. The recommendation is to pass with amendments.
Okay.
Any reservations or noes? Recommendation adopted.
Thank you. All right, next we have HCR 147, HR 149. I appreciate that the department actually provided the data asked for in this resolution, so we will defer the measure. Next, we have HCR 75, HR 76. And this one will pass with some amendments. Basically, page 3, line 1, we will amend the mandate for all schools to participate in the aquatic safety education programs to those that wish to participate and for which funding is available. And then adding be it further resolved, requesting that Department of Education conduct a statewide needs assessment in preparation of establishing an aquatic safety education program in all DOE elementary schools to be contracted out with one or more qualified nonprofit organizations. In addition, in the committee report, we'll note the complex areas that have already indicated they would like to participate in this so that they can be followed up with. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on HCR 75, HR 76. The recommendation is to pass with amendments. Any reservations or noes? Recommendation adopted.
Thank you very much. Next, we have HCR 180, HR 185. And Vice Chair recommends passing as is. We'll note in the committee report some of the data that was shared with us. Actually, never mind. That's for the one below. My scribbling's all over here. As is. Vice Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Voting on HCR 180, HR 185. The recommendation is to pass as is. Any reservations or noes? Recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next, HCR 53, HR 55. This one passing as is and noting in the committee report some of the data that was shared with us about numbers of systems working, not working, noting that we requested a list and also some of the budget estimates. Any questions or concerns? Vice Chair, Chair for the vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Voting on HCR 53, HR 55. The recommendation is to pass unamended. Any reservations or no? Adopted.
HCR 116, HR 121. Vice Chair recommends passing as is. Any questions or concerns? Chair for the vote, please.
Thank you, members. Voting on HCR 116, HR 121. The recommendation is to pass as is. Any reservations or noes? Recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next, we have HCR 123, HR 124. Vice Chair recommends passing with amendments. Even I am a little concerned about the focus on movie theaters. I think that perfect might get in the way of good, and it won't be seen. So I will delete page 2, line 14 through 18. And then on page 2, line 37, make a small amendment saying that the department is urged to coordinate with the necessary agencies and stakeholders to provide free access to the documentary in a format that is accessible to each school. Having spoken with the producers of the film, they would provide it for free on YouTube. Are there any concerns or questions or comments? No. Chair for the vote, please.
Thank you. Voting on HCR 123, HR 124. The recommendation is to pass with amendments. Members, any reservations or noes? Adopted.
Next, we have HCR 158, HR 159. Vice Chair recommends passing as is. Any comments? Chair for the vote, please.
Thank you. Voting on HCR 122, HR 123. The recommendation is to pass as is. Any reservations or noes? Recommendation adopted.
Next, we have HCR 143, HR 145. Vice Chair recommends passing as is. Any questions or comments?
Which one are we on?
Who's ahead?
We're on.
Oh, sorry, one. Should be on 141.
We're on this one.
Okay.
58.
Okay, so did I skip one?
We're on this one, 158.
Okay. HCR 158, HR 159. Vice Chair recommends passing as is. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on HCR 158, HR 159. The recommendation is to pass unamended. Any reservations or noes? Recommendation adopted.
Next, we have HCR 143, HR 145. Vice Chair recommends passing as is. Any comments or questions? Not, Chair for the vote, please.
Thank you. Members voting on HCR 143, HR 145. The recommendation is to pass as is. Any reservations or noes? Adopted.
Next, we have HCR 145, HR 147. Vice Chair recommends passing as is. Are there any questions or comments? Chair for the vote, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members voting on HCR 145, HR 147. The recommendation is to pass unamended. Any reservations or noes? Adopted.
Thank you very much. We are adjourned.